This episode of the Managing Madrid podcast is brought to you by Intercontinental San Francisco Hotel. They are hosting our podcast on the 25th in the Bay Area at 7 p.m. We are so excited to meet you guys in the Bay Area. Also see some old faces. Of course, San Francisco was famously the place of our very first ever live podcast that we did. And I have fond memories of it. And so last time it was in a bar. Now we got a nice hotel conference room. And we really look forward to meeting you guys on the 25th in the Bay Area at the Intercontinental San Francisco Hotel. So please come out. As a reminder, we are not going to Los Angeles. So we are cutting preseason short for personal reasons. For my personal reasons, I can't go to LA. So I'm doing Vegas, San Fran, both of those games as press and also podcasts in both cities, but not coming to LA. So if you're in California, you want to come meet us, I would highly suggest you guys come in to San Francisco. Or if you're in Vegas this weekend, come out to our Vegas podcast. So we're doing Vegas on Sunday at noon and then San Francisco Monday night at 7 p.m. The Vegas one should be really interesting. It's going to be a lot of people from out of town in there in Vegas who are just going to come meet us, and it just works out. I'm really looking forward to seeing you guys again and meeting new faces. I'd be very curious to know what the dynamic is like, because it's an early podcast in the day, and the Clasico is super late the night before, and it's also Saturday night in Vegas. So I can only imagine that the people attending the podcast will basically just roll out of bed, grab a coffee, and show up. No assumptions, really, but I mean, it is Saturday night in Vegas, so I wouldn't blame the people who are in attendance to just go out after the Clasico, win, draw, or lose. And that game ends, I think, around midnight, maybe later. I can't remember. So either way, look forward to seeing you guys on Sunday and Monday. So please come out. The links to book your spots to our Vegas and San Francisco shows are in the show notes. Today's podcast is very short. It's an excerpt from my book on Mesut Ozil. And basically what happened is I landed in Vegas like pretty recently, a few hours ago. I got settled, checked in. I got reminded what Las Vegas is like, which is desert heat, 45 degrees outside. And then inside, the escape is overly blasted air conditioning that literally chills your bones and is super uncomfortable, and a ton of secondhand smoke. So if you like desert heat, uncomfortable cold, and smoke in your lungs, please come to our Las Vegas podcast. We look forward to seeing you guys, and enjoy this little short podcast that I've thrown up there because I didn't want to go a Thursday without content. Our mailbag got pushed to Friday with Lucas over on patreon.com/managingmadrid. I didn't want to have no content today, so what I did was I read an excerpt from my book. It's the Mesut Ozil excerpt. This isn't the only part of my book where I talked about Ozil. There are actually more elaborate points in my book about him. The context of this particular reading is that it's from my ranking, where I've ranked virtually every Real Madrid player in the club's history. And I'm not going to spoil where Ozil ranks, so I'm not going to read his rank. I'm just going to read his name and then just a little blurb to explain the rank. So enjoy it, and as always, we'll get started with Ray Hudson and Derek. Ray, let's go.
Nice article in the Managing Madrid blog. Wonderful lads that do a great job there. And worth reading about that man there. Karim Benzema needs to rest, and the numbers reveal why.
Times ended up almost looking like a 6-3-1. Some very good writing about that on the Managing Madrid website. First-rate podcast as well. Of course, Fede Valverde was a huge part of the equation.
Mesut Ozil, 2010 to 2013. CV, 1 La Liga title, 1 Copa del Rey title, 1 Spanish Super Cup title, UEFA Team of the Year twice, 2012 and 2013. First in assists in all of the top 5 major leagues, 2011-2012 season. Top 5 in assists per 90 in all of the top 5 major leagues 3 times, 2011, 2012, 2013. 5th in goals and assists per 90 in La Liga, 2012-2013 season. Supreme gliding ability. His superpower, reliable ball progressor, and a great creator when pressured. In Mesut Ozil's presentation as a Real Madrid player, he stated that his best position is right behind the strikers, as a 10. When the club signed him, they already had 3 such players who could play that role. Ricardo Kaká, the 3rd most expensive signing in football history at the time, Sergio Canales, a 19-year-old budding star, and Rafael van der Vaart, a solid veteran. But as cluttered as the position was, Ozil was a market opportunity impossible to pass up on. He had just dominated the World Cup in 2010, was one of the best young players in the world, and had just come off a season where he had the most assists in all the top 5 leagues combined. And the best part, he only cost 13 million. The cream rises to the top. Ozil won the Battle of the 10, and he won it convincingly. He couldn't speak Spanish, knew barely any English, and he boasted less than perfect German. Then manager Jose Mourinho knew enough languages to survive almost anywhere on earth, but he did not know either German or Turkish, which was Ozil's mother tongue. Despite that, Ozil connected with everyone on the field and made everyone look better. He was aesthetically breathtaking, cold-blooded, serene, and surgical. He showed up in every Clásico he played, even the ones Real Madrid got rocked in part because he was so good at being pressed and Barca loved pressing. Hound him at your own peril. Like some eel, he'd find his way out of multiple players, and he did it elegantly, the way the Bernabeu liked it. There was a reason why Cristiano Ronaldo was so upset when Real Madrid ultimately sold Ozil in 2013. The German fed the Portuguese assists and key passes as if he was my grandmother feeding me fresh-baked cookies. And that his Real Madrid career ended in 2013 and not in 2020 is a disappointment in itself. Maybe that's harsh, but to remind you, we all thought Ozil was going to be a Real Madrid legend. He had humility and bounce. He could do things no one else could. The Spanish media thought he was the return of Zinedine Zidane. Xabi Alonso spoke publicly about Ozil's style of play, that he was a dying breed, and he meant that in a good way. Quote, he's the kind of player you don't find these days, end quote. Jorge Valdano, who regularly waxed lyrical about him, predicted Ozil would define the next decade at the club. What Valdano described above is essentially what Luka Modric became, but it was not a path that was destined for Ozil. In 2013, the club sold the German to make room for Gareth Bale, and the style of play shifted as Real Madrid moved into an era of using a 4-3-3 with pacey wingers. This one had a sad ending, as the club's go-to media outlets published countless stories about Ozil as he was on his way out, fabricating things about his greediness, laziness, and attitude. But despite it ending sooner than we thought, the Ozil era was special. He was devastatingly good. Alright, before we let you guys go, we wanted to give a quick shout out to our patrons over on patreon.com/managingmadrid who do so much to support the show. If you like high quality journalism and you want to stay away from some of the sensationalist stuff and you want some analysis and you like our work, go over to patreon.com/managingmadrid. You get a ton of bonus shows, and we wanted to give a specific shout out to our $10 plus patrons, because if you pledge $10 or more, not only do you get guaranteed responses to your questions, but you also get a specific shout out on the podcast. So shout out to Brandon Alvarez, Willie Reed, Wei Pering, Wamik Jamal, Umar Mahadi, Tyler Simon, Tobias Arroyo Botcher, Tarek Goktas, Talib Salhab, Tahmid Kalam, Sushank Damala, Sujaiwani, Sumanshu Singh, Shivam Tiwari, Sherry Soriol, Sheikh Hatiri, Shamil, Shabazz Sharapov, Sergio Arispe, Santos Solorzano, Samir Z, Said Mahad, Sai Mohan Sasi Kumar, Rodrigo Balmaceda, Rishi D, Rafi Irfan Zaman, Phoenix, Peter Powell, Paulo Fierro, Patrick Diafati, Oscar Barrera, Nico Laxo, Nicholas Zapatero Zubiare, Nicholas Mulder, Nick Ribeiro, Nelson Masariego, Muxi Thengal, Mowgli, MJ Diego, Michael Zinberg, Marin Myrtle, Martin Ridman, Logan Stahl, Leon Stavronakis, Kunal Tilakar, Crystal Glass, Kevin Rivera, Jose Cruz, John Fernandez, Jeff Thurston, Jason Fitz, Ian Marley, Graham Gerard, Gary Kohut, Frederick Rantakiro, Frederick Sundros, Faisal Hamdan, S.A. Davicito, Eloy Enriquez, Edward Sossman, Daniel Williams, Christian Toft, Christian Acosta, Charles Williams, Brendan Powers, Brandon Stevens, Ashik Bashar, Arman Gashi, Armando L, Antons Rudenko, Anirudh Singh, Alexis Ceniceros, Al Azaz Hussein, Adrian Rios, Adar Zalikovic, Adam Dorsey, Bella Chow, Varun, Ramtin Mahrur, Fabian Moreno, and Daniel Smith. We love you guys so much. Appreciate your support. Thank you for being part of the family, and Hala Madrid.